Right. So when we look at the effects of European exploration, one of the biggest effects is the expansion of world trade. And for the first time in this early modern era, we can truly say that we have a global trade network, that now it incorporated the Americas into that existing Afro-Eurasian trade network. And Europe is going to help facilitate this expansion of global trade. We're also going to see an increase in economic dependency. And so part of this comes from an expansion of mercantilism. And so mercantilism is an economic system based on importing fewer goods than you export. And the idea is to generate wealth by exporting expensive goods and importing raw materials. And so Europe is going to use their colonies, especially in the Americas, to expand mercantilism. And so they force these colonies to buy finished products from the West, from the mother country, and to sell their raw materials back to the mother country as well. And so one of the side effects of this expansion of global trade is also going to be an expansion of mercantilism. We're also going to see Europe is going to purchase a lot of these unfinished goods and silver from the Americas, and that's going to flood into Asian markets. And Asia is actually going to become dependent on this silver from the Americas. We're also going to see some parts of the world become dependent on Europe. Europe, for the first time, is going to enjoy a very favorable balance of trade. And so places like Latin America, their entire economy is going to be dependent on Europe. And they're going to export mostly single cash crops or a single raw material. And so in this era, many parts of Latin America were exporting sugar. And their entire economy revolved around sugar exports. In Africa, their entire economy is going to revolve around the export of raw materials like ivory, but especially slaves. And so they become dependent on the West for their manufactured goods and dependent on the West to purchase these raw materials. And this economic dependency is going to be something that plagues these regions, not just during this era, but into the next era, and in some cases all the way to present day. We're also going to see an increase in inequalities. And so the center of this new trade world was Western Europe. And so most of the world had this unequal relationship with Europe. And most countries, especially in Latin America and Africa and parts of Southeast Asia, didn't even control their own economies. And so they were forced to trade these raw materials to Europe. With that, we're also going to see an increase in coercive labor or forced labor. So most of the world labor systems during this era was unfree. And whether we're talking about serfdom that continued to persist in places like Russia, or slavery, which is going to expand into the Americas, most of the labor was unfree. And the whole purpose behind this forced labor was to maximize profits. By keeping labor cheap, Europeans were able to maximize their own profits.